This podcast provides a platform for our guests to share their experiences and inspire our listeners to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. As you listen, we invite you to explore how these concepts apply to your own story. You know what to do. Be great and be grateful. We're mic'd up with Mike DiCioccio. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I have a phenomenal guest in store for you today. She has spent more than 25 years in both the private and public sectors, creating new products and startup businesses, driving innovation and economic growth in high-tech industries. She finished her doctoral work at the University of Rochester, which resulted in growing two different firms with more than 100 employees and two initial public offerings. In July of 2014, she became the president and CEO of Launch New York, a 27-county venture development organization that she co-founded with other Buffalo boosters and whose mission is to identify, support, and invest in high-growth, high-impact companies and catalyze the entrepreneurial culture of Upstate New York. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Dr. Marnie Lavigne.
Thanks so much, Mike. Pleasure to be here today.
That was a little bit long-winded, and there's things that I had to even cut out of there because we're limited in time. But I want you to talk a little bit about your backstory, and I'll just share with the audience real quick. We connected through the Avanti Entrepreneur Network, and so I got to see you do a phenomenal presentation, and also I had the honor of working with you with a couple of your videos and some marketing opportunities. So thank you for that. The friendship continues to grow, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this.
My pleasure.
So let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about growing up, and was becoming a leader in an organization as you are, was that something that you envisioned at a young age, or when was that planted?
It's always a hard one to really pinpoint exactly when that started, but I, will attribute being able to think big and envision myself doing whatever it is that I would have to say that the good Lord wanted to set me down a path to do. That really came from my parents. So I can't really tell you that they, said, here are things that you should be. But we were always encouraged. I'm the youngest of 5 children. So I had a lot of great role models in my siblings. So the whole belief from day one was you're going to go out, you're going to create a better community, have a family, those were all expectations. And then certainly it was my high school career at Sacred Heart Academy where I was able to blossom into a leader, was ahead of many clubs. Even the Red Cross Club, as much as I was passing out and giving blood myself, I was motivated to make sure that we were hosting those kinds of events that made a difference in the world. And it was really from there that I went on to college and then ultimately graduate school, where I had tremendous mentors who showed me the way in these more complicated arenas like starting a business. I certainly worked in the retail outlet. I worked at a women's clothing store in my high school experience. So, being out there pressing the flesh with the public, I really enjoyed. So I think it all started to come together for me probably in graduate school. And as I finished my doctoral work, my advisor got me into my first startup that took the amazing efforts of our behavioral science lab, and we started creating products that help people with different kind of medical conditions, or say they wanted to stop smoking or exercise more. We really use behavioral science to help them improve their lives and their health. And those were some of the first products that I was involved with when I really, frankly, had no business background whatsoever in terms of creating new products and services.
And I noticed that too, the more I got to know you, and also I'm doing some research here, that you were in the industry of managed care, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, which I find fascinating and interesting. Medical informatics, I'm not really even quite sure, so you can share what that even means. But my point is, right now, fast forward to being into the entrepreneurial landscape of Launch New York and helping start up entrepreneurs and companies, right? They're not all medical based, right? So but you do have an interest in that field. Do you find yourself kind of sometimes connecting those dots, or is that something that is kind of more in the past and your focus is different now? Do you still have a medical focus?
Yeah, a great question. I have to admit, personally, it's a real passion for me, but Launch New York was created by myself and my colleagues because we had a lot of innovators who wanted to create businesses that impacted the world, and that had a different flavor than setting up a local grocery store or even a brewery, honestly. So we knew we needed to help businesses that had that kind of flavor, where they had maybe a technology edge, they had broad reach, they had intellectual property, maybe some patents. They needed different kind of funding. They needed what we call equity capital, not just loans, not just friends and family money. They really needed substantial dollars to grow. So, while I cut my teeth on the medical space, particularly in what you referred to in the informatics arena, things like electronic medical records, these same kind of dynamics were keeping many of our innovators, sort of in the background here in Western New York. We just didn't have type of experience that you needed to help them get out of the gates and get that product developed and get it in the market. So I actually started running what was called Bright Buffalo Niagara as a venture forum that helped feature companies sharing these same kind of challenges. And why did we do that? We did that because, first of all, there's a lot of innovations, particularly in the healthcare arena, that can change people's lives in ways only we would imagine with like the next new drug, for example. Sure. And so I was certainly driven by the fact that why would we keep these inventions in a laboratory and not bring them out to the public? So what was happening is a lot of these great ideas were either dying on the vine, so they never saw the light of day. Nobody benefited from all that great expertise and innovation. Or a lot of those inventors or founders of businesses, they would leave Western New York. So here we are trying to grow a new economy, and you know how badly we've needed that over the last several decades. So for myself, we actually now serve all companies across all industry sectors. Yeah. One key requirement: it has to be high growth. And we define that pretty simply by a target of $10 million in annual revenues by 5 to 7 years. Most of our companies who come to Launch New York, we've served over 1,070 to date since 2012 with free mentoring. Most of them come in having no revenues. And so we're here to, support your idea, support that exploration of whether that idea has enough legs that it can really launch a successful product. So yes, we do have substantial still in the health and medical arena, probably about 20% of our companies. But we also have them across, all kinds of consumer products. Food and beverage is growing for us. We also are very proud to be a clean tech incubator. So it might be, a sustainability, a waste management company, all the way to a renewable energy technology. So we're here really for every entrepreneur who has a big idea.
I love it. And so I know you're on the board of directors with the Buffalo Angels, right? And also Western New York Venture Association and Launch New York. All three of those help impact our regional economy. Can you talk a little bit more? So talk to the startup entrepreneur or someone who may have a great idea in their heart right now and they're looking to take that next step. How can the Buffalo Angels or Launch New York help them out from a assistance standpoint?
Most of our founders in this region still have quite a bit of work to do to qualify their idea. If I think I have a new widget, if I think I have a service that is serving a need that you have, people with great ideas often fall in love with their own ideas and haven't necessarily checked out whether the public is, or whoever your customer is, whether that customer really identifies that your product is a great solution, that your product really solves a need, and that, hey, I'm willing to pay for it, and here's how much I'm willing to pay. Because at the end of the day, the product or service that you're thinking about, you have to be able to make money to support delivering that to the market. And if you're going to take investor capital, you're going to need to be able to give return. So there has to be profitability to it. Yeah. So I think the first thing I would say is Launch New York is one of the easiest ways to come in and find out if you have a viable idea. And the beauty is you don't have to meet me at a certain location at a certain time. You can apply to Launch New York at launchny.org online anytime. And you will connect with our project manager who will be able to, help you understand what our services are, but also connect you with one of our mentors for an intake call, probably usually within a mere few days, certainly within a week or so, depending on your availability. So in very short order, from the convenience of your home and wherever you have your smartphone, you can really talk to someone who's going to walk you through some of these questions that I'm asking and let you know how we do business, let you know how we'll provide free mentoring to you if you want to engage with us. What's really unique about Launch New York is we not only offer pro bono mentoring through an incredible pool of individuals who are trained in all kinds of business and technical sectors, but we also then offer you a chance to apply for our seed funding. In fact, we offer the most active seed fund in New York State. So I would tell you that typically at Buffalo Angels, I would certainly encourage you to engage. If you're watching this from Western New York, Buffalo Angels is a group. If you're in Rochester, Syracuse, Ithaca, Corning, there are other kind of venues where you can see companies pitch. You can come and meet other entrepreneurs. Certain times of year, no matter what community in upstate I'm talking about, there are so many events you can't possibly go to them all. So my first suggestion is that entrepreneurs really ought to go and just meet other entrepreneurs and hear others pitch. You can even watch video pitches like this. So you get some idea of what you're heading into and what the expectations will be. And then Launch New York is certainly here as a free resource for you to get started. But again, many, many other groups, typically a Buffalo Angels, will be there for you when you're ready to raise capital. Probably not your first money. Generally, they're going to want to see that you have some revenues. So Launch New York is often a perfect pipeline of how companies get started. And then we have realized that we've had over 140 co-investors, Buffalo Angels just one among them, who want to co-invest because of the support we're providing to help get companies ready for investment, to help get their venture started, and to help it grow. So I think, making those connections, getting out of your own home office or wherever you're working, and you got to test your idea. You got to connect with the ecosystem.
So if a company had a product that, let's say they did 50,000 in sales first year, right? Brand new to the market, didn't really have anything to compare it with. Next year, maybe they're doing 75, right? So that's way smaller than you said, the high growth of 5 to 7 years hitting a 10 million mark. But if the investors see, okay, so they did 25% more, and maybe their third year they show that they did another 25% and it's going in the right direction. But maybe a problem is like production. They just couldn't get enough of them out. They could sell them, but the problem wasn't that the thing didn't work or sell or wasn't wanted, right? There was demand for it. So that investors could see that and say, hey, this looks like a small company, but we do see that it's a $10 million idea. Is that a good example?
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, I just happened to have a breakfast meeting today, and we were discussing a company in town that has a recycled product. It certainly is not hitting that $10 million per year. What we could do is, so first of all, some people are okay with the business being a smaller business, and that's terrific. Launch New York just happens to specialize in those transformational high growth businesses that really can reach very large markets, maybe even international if so desired. So yeah, it's a perfect example where most of our companies that actually have a manufactured product, they got going. If they didn't take in money from investors, they're usually working with smaller amounts of money, and they manage to produce a product somehow. But to scale that up and really reach thousands of units, tens of thousands of units, and maybe millions even a year, you're going to need some serious dollars to grow the kind of equipment and facility and operation that you have. That's exactly the kind of thing that Launch New York helps you analyze, really understand how the scaling would go over the years, do your financials and your pro formas so that you can present those to investors so they can hear your story. You really need to have a plan that is believable, credible. We want scalability, but we don't want pure fiction.
Right.
Investors are pretty smart. We all know that what you think is going to happen probably isn't exactly how it's going to go. So we want to see that you are coachable, that you have analyzed to the best of your ability, but that you're not paralyzed by all the unknowns, because entrepreneurship is definitely a walk into unknown places and can often be much of a roller coaster ride.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's similar to insurance, like a large insurance company taking a risk on a company. They want to see what the risk factor is, you know. That's a different story from a liability standpoint, but an entrepreneur or a new product or service, the liability is how does the investor, you know, what are their chances? Do they feel they're going to win the game? Do they feel they don't have a shot in the fight? You know what I mean? Like, so if they don't think there's a chance, I'm sure sometimes they take a little bit more of a risk. Am I right?
Well, let's just put it this way. What Launch New York does, it's all about risk. Every one of our companies is still in a very risky phase. Market changes, you know, pricing, availability of materials, competitive technologies, you know, just being able to get into a market where you have other competitors. Or, you know, on the flip side, you say, well, hey, I created this brand new way to, you know, improve my smartphone. Well, you know, gee, if that's not how anybody's ever done it before, if that's not how the big players who sell the phones actually want to, you know, improve their product, you know, suddenly you're having to convince people. And so that's what they call a market adoption challenge. One of the other biggest problems we see is what they call product market fit. That you think you've got a great idea, maybe it solves a problem the way you want to solve it. But at the end of the day, most of the other people out there who would have to buy your product, they're just not ready for what your solution looks like. Yeah. You know, it doesn't mean your solution doesn't have value. It just means that it's not necessarily viable as a high growth potential business basis today.
Yeah. And so that would be an example of, you know, I've watched a few episodes of Shark Tank. I like that show, but you know, it's similar idea where you have to pitch it and you have to get an approval, but they'll say like the market's talking to you, right? Where if someone didn't create this, you know, an app and it doesn't show that that's actually something that's working, smartphones have been out so long, right? So it's not that they're not willing to hear or see a new idea, but if it's already proven to work a particular way, they're probably not going to be as excited about trying to go against the grain. Especially if there's risk, right? Like going against the grain plus risk is something an investor most likely isn't going to be too interested in.
Yeah, but, you know, at the same time, we all are doing business differently. Everybody likes to use examples like Airbnb. You know, who would have ever thought that Airbnb, you know, going and staying overnight in a stranger's house would be anything we would all engage with and spend a lot of money on.
Wouldn't have thought, no.
So, you know, if people who are creative, you know, weren't courageous enough to go down the road of driving adoption of new ways of living and new technologies, we certainly would probably still be living in the dark ages.
Well, I like that. So I'm glad I asked the question because, you know, we're talking about investors and somewhat of a safety factor, and that kind of, that's being smart, but it kind of squashes a little bit of the hopes and dreams of the dreamer product or service. But you're saying, no, we encourage you to still come with us with these cool ideas. You could have the next Netflix, right? And if you're not willing to do that because Blockbuster was working well at the time, and you know how that went down, right? They were even pitched the opportunity to purchase Netflix, and they scoffed at it. And then within years, they didn't exist. So you're encouraging like, hey, you know, bring your awesome idea to us. We want to help sharpen it and then figure out how we can help you make money. And if it doesn't, it might not work out. But if you show some kind of history of analytics that you're growing and on the right path, we're definitely going to get you there quicker. But
or we're going to let you test it out. So, you know, many in Western New York are familiar with the great story of ACV auctions and how they essentially took wholesale car auctions that you would go to in person to purchase these cars. Usually car dealers were doing that. And they put it all online. You know, early on, they didn't really have the traction initially, but they had someone who came out of the industry, you know, understood this was a choke point. And yet we know there was feedback from established, you know, old time car dealers who said, I'd never use that. Well, guess what? They're probably using it today. Yeah. And so what we do know is that changes in today's environment, it doesn't matter what the product or the service is, these are faster changes in the types of products we're using and the adoption of an Airbnb or an ACV auctions, faster cycles than we've ever seen. So something that maybe 10 years ago you couldn't imagine, today we're all using it and it's making money hand over fist. So I encourage, practicality, and we do like our clients to show, the client companies to show that they can get a customer who pays. That is the best way to attract an investor to want to invest in your company.
That's great. Talk a little bit about the entrepreneurs in residence aspect of Launch New York. I know it's a great program where it's a little bit more hands-on experience with an entrepreneur who has been there, done that, and has had success. And do you have time for a couple more questions after that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Talk about EIR.
So what we call an EIR, an entrepreneur in residence, is a mentor. A mentor is, that's a phrase being used very widely. We, through much study and learning from other best practice models around the country, we have made sure to take those best practices to heart. So these are individuals that we have determined it would be most important for us to actually be able to compensate them. These are individuals with anywhere from 10 to 30 plus years of business and industry experience, building products, services, startups, investing in companies, raising investment capital. They're exactly the kind of talent that we want to bring together with our new technologies and the risk capital that we're willing to provide, so that it's being well used, it's being targeted, that we can help these companies really move down the path most efficiently. Do we know you're going to take a few wrong turns? Of course, that's what innovation is all about. But we like the phrase fail fast. If something doesn't work, let's figure that out quickly so you can pivot. Yeah. So our entrepreneurs in residence, we have over 24 of them who provide these services free of charge to our clients. But they work very closely with us so we can monitor, support, add more expertise as needed. Sometimes our companies are just thinking about finding out whether customers want to pay for their new product, whether it could be an app or even a food product. But then as they move forward, they need assistance with manufacturing, as you mentioned. So now we need a different type of expert to help. So we constantly move them, kind of like in healthcare. Again, you can tell I like that healthcare side of it. You go to your primary care, but you go to specialists. So we have actually even added a national mentor network of over 2,000 business and technical experts that will provide 10 to 15 hours of free expertise to help with very niche kinds of questions. So there's really ultimately a full team of people here free to our amazing founders to help them get ready for that first capital. Mm-hmm. So companies then work with those mentors for a minimum of 3 months. Then they can apply for Launch New York's seed fund, which, as I mentioned, is the most active in the state. And we are putting money out there 2 to 3 times a month. And we're pulling together almost 17 times our dollars. So I call our little 5 figures small but mighty. But now we have a whole series of other investment programs, what we call our Invest Local financing programs. So we actually help other private investors get to know these companies, put a little capital in to see how they do with their proof of concept. And then they're there for the next round of funding.
Strength in numbers, right?
Strength in numbers.
Coming together. I want to get back to you here at the end, but since we're on the topic of how Launch New York can help out a budding entrepreneur or someone who already has a business and they're looking to take it to the next level, and of course they got circled on their dream board hitting 10 million in revenue, right? So again, talk to somebody. They may be starting out, but they also may be on that path to that 10 million mark. So if they're tuning in right now, what would be 3 pieces of advice that you would give that person? If you can kind of take the things you've learned, you've been with Launch New York for 6-7 years now. So what would be like the top 3 things you would say, action items, do these right away to start up, and you're going to limit the squiggly line in the roller coaster?
Yeah, I'd say first and foremost, don't wait, reach out. Mm-hmm. I just spoke to someone the other day who had been in their business for over 5 years and realized that probably there could have been some better ways to accelerate the growth. So I wish that individual had been in touch with us earlier. So the conversation that I had for an hour to say, tell me about your business, tell me where it's at, have that conversation now. Get outside of what sometimes people call your echo chamber. We're all really busy. You're really busy trying to run a business and get your idea going, but you've got to share it. Ultimately, that's how you will build a team. You will come up with an idea and drive it forward in sync with what the market's looking for. So reach out and get engaged. Look at Launch New York website and look at the events. Just get yourself out there, start talking to other people. It'll really help you get great ideas. The next I would say is find yourself a mentor. So it's terrific to network, but don't stop there. Find someone or many people who are willing to spend some amount of time with you. Obviously, Launch New York puts that into an organized, consistent way that we keep in touch with you on a regular basis. We use Business Model Canvas as a way to walk you through the approach of how you're thinking about your business. So get that mentor, find that mentor. We're not the only resource, but we are one that's easily accessible. And I have to tell you, we have a lot of underrepresented entrepreneurs and founders. Over 47% of our companies have female and or minority leaders who wouldn't necessarily have other places they would have naturally gone for mentorship. So, get out there, get connected, meet mentors. And then third, be coachable. We all have our own personalities, but the reality is your road will not be straight. You will be traveling in many different directions. Mm-hmm. There is not one single company that we've worked with whose product and services look exactly the way they thought from the day they first spoke to us. Totally. So, be prepared for a roller coaster ride, be open to that experience, be open to advice, be open to looking at things differently and going in different directions. And if I get to add a fourth, be patient. Be patient. Be persistent.
You mean it doesn't happen overnight? Your end game success isn't going to happen in the first month of starting a business? Come on.
Well, let me tell you, all the experiences you shared on my bio, I wasn't a business major. I traveled with a team. I learned, but really Launch New York is my first time being in a completely independent organization that I am leading, that it really lives and dies on my efforts. But I learned a lot through the process of working with different groups, working where I had to really contribute to an organization sustaining itself. So, those who are doing the CEO role for the very first time, it takes a while. You learn a lot. But how fulfilling, and when you can actually create an organization impacting others, employing people, creating incredible products and services that improve quality of life. I mean, what could be a better way to look back on your career down the road, right?
Yeah, so reflecting on that, would you say that's your favorite part about being in the role you're in, is how you're helping all the different entrepreneurs and including people in your own organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to tell you, one of the first entrepreneurs and inventors that I helped is someone in the cancer research arena who had new cancer diagnostics. And I said to this person, and I love the fact that it was a female entrepreneur, and I said, I can't cure cancer, you can, and I want to help you. I want to help you make that difference in everyone's lives. And I have to say, well, it started in the healthcare arena. I just see entrepreneurship is so impactful. It is the greatest generator of new jobs in our country. Over the last 30 years, we've seen those data. And interestingly enough, the United States is actually still behind where it was decades ago in terms of new business starts annually. I know it seems like entrepreneurship has caught fire, Shark Tank and the like make us all really excited. And I'm glad people are thinking about it as a viable career pathway. But we still have a long way to go. So our journey really has just begun, but I can see the impact. I could see that upstate New York, we didn't have anything like an ACV auctions to point to just a few years ago. So yes, you nailed it. Making a difference in the community in a way that is tangible, impacts people's lives, makes a difference in the community, the health of the community, the prosperity of the community, but engages everyone. There really isn't a limitation on who can jump in. And while many people think, I can't ever do this, well, guess what? My journey didn't start being the CEO. My journey started following others, trying to be a key contributor. So, I do hope others appreciate that this is a pathway like none other, and, try it on.
Appreciate it. What are a couple of your favorite personal development books that either are, something that they can internalize to better themselves so people can be the best version of themselves? And then also maybe a business or entrepreneurial book that you feel, it could be a book or it could be any kind of education tool that can really help somebody out.
Yeah, great question. And, obviously there's a plethora of resources. I certainly will say that first and foremost, I personally am very driven by, mission related aspects of my life. And, I have a strong faith in God. And for me, that's actually what awoke in me that my need as I became more of a leader, that I needed to be a better leader. So there's a terrific book called Virtuous Leadership that's a super quick read. And I highly recommend that. And that really turned me on to the idea of thinking big, but doing it in a way that engenders empowerment of others and giving back. You hear a lot about the, give first mentality. Techstars talks a lot about that, but I actually think a lot of that relates back to spirituality. So that's what drives a lot of my thinking every day. So I certainly recommend anything in that arena. But I would then tie that to, I will actually just give a practical tool that Launch New York uses. And I mentioned the business model canvas. Steve Blank and the Lean Startup, that has really taken hold internationally. So for those of us, quote, in the biz of doing entrepreneurial support services, we've really embraced this idea of how do you rapidly work with that idea so that you're not just sitting there 10 years later and not having anything to show for it. But in fact, you really test the idea, you poke, you prod, you do the customer discovery. So I would encourage anyone thinking about this arena to just Google business model canvas. And you'll see all kinds of great YouTube videos, even of Starbucks and how the organization really grew around that concept. The book that I'm really digging right now, though, is called Blitzscaling. And it's written by Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, and Christopher Ye. And Christopher Ye happened to actually be in Western New York this past fall. So I had a terrific opportunity to actually introduce our companies rather, to him, plus hear him speak. And blitzscaling is all about really big ideas that change the way we live our lives. And one of the greatest lessons that they shared that I absolutely loved, Christopher Ye said, listen all, entrepreneurs never go to bed with their to-do list checked off in full. Never, ever. So you have to get
alone. Okay, good.
You got to get used to the idea that you're riding a wild ride and you can't control everything. So the phrase he threw out to the crowd was, let the fires burn.
Yeah.
And I loved it because, you do those things that aren't figured out. They're not nice, clean, in a box, all set, to-do list checked off. We all have those things, but to understand that's part of being an entrepreneur. So I love it. Let the fires burn.
I feel that this is my personal opinion, but I think history backs it up. I use sports analogies at times because they're easy to kind of relate to business, but you think about someone who is able to handle adversity and perform at a high level through adversity. That could be a quarterback that has 5 guys on his neck while he's trying to deliver a game-winning drive in a Super Bowl, or it could be an entrepreneur who has 12 fires in their face and emails coming in that needs to eventually rest their head on a pillow for at least 4 hours so they can function tomorrow. And then tomorrow they're going to have more fires and they still perform at a high level through it all. Would you agree that is that's maybe a quality of a strong leader or entrepreneur, is being able to perform at a high level through it all?
Absolutely a requirement. And I guess, that'll probably be my 5th tip for entrepreneurs. If you really are committed to what you're doing and the impact it will have, you'll be able to persevere. If you don't have that passion, it will be pretty much impossible to continue day to day through what can feel like you're, trying to walk through molasses. You're trying to go upstream, whatever the analogy or metaphor you want to use. Entrepreneurship is all about that, but it almost doesn't feel like an effort when you really have a passion for what you're doing.
Yeah. When you're sold on it in your heart, there's no matter what situation, good, bad, or ugly, I can feel that myself. Cause you have people kind of ask when is it going to come together to your big vision? And it's like, look, Disney World wasn't built in 2 days, and most people didn't want to give Walt any money for it. And how are they feeling right now?
That's exactly right. And I actually want to thank you, Mike, for the efforts you're taking to tell the story of entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
It's making a difference. People are realizing this is an option. This is an option for you to not only make an impact in the world, but actually to have a very fulfilling and I would say a flexible lifestyle. You're working really hard, but I raised my family, with my husband. We both really were entrepreneurs, and we made it work together. And as his duties and responsibilities with his professional activities would really kick in, I would kind of find the flexibility, and then vice versa. So when I came over to launch New York, we came over at a really critical time, and I was so excited that I could get our seed fund up and running. I had never raised a fund like that before. And it's been really gratifying to have partners in this, personally and professionally. Mm-hmm. But entrepreneurship gives you that kind of experience. And I, raised 2 kids, now have 4 grandchildren, and I'm just thrilled I can share that with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that your husband was also involved as an entrepreneur as well. So that's definitely helpful, I would say, because, the lifestyle that it comes with sometimes could be not so much, there's not structure there, and structure is an important thing, right? In marriage or relationship. So to have 2 people that get it, I'm sure that helped you at times, although that means more fires and more craziness too.
Absolutely did. But I will say, for those out there trying to figure out what's the path forward, we did each have employed situations, often when the other was off doing the completely independent startup thing. So my husband's, over 20 years with his, he's more of a Main Street business. So it's not a high growth business, but it's one that, has been really terrific for our family, and my son's involved. And, entrepreneurship overall is, I just think, a really incredible place for people to be. And even if you're not, for whatever reason, ready to be in an entrepreneurial organization yourself, there are ways to connect with those organizations, doing what you're doing, for example, by helping to tell a story. Every one of those organizations works with, marketing firms, accountants, insurers, law firms. Being part of that ecosystem is really how Silicon Valley developed. Mm-hmm. That's really how, Massachusetts, these key areas of our country, New York City, you have others who are ready to work alongside and support it. So everybody has a role to play in entrepreneurship at the end of the day. Yeah.
So any entrepreneur listening right now, I want you to go to, if you haven't already, and I'm going to have it up on the screen throughout this interview, launchny.org. Launchny.org is where you can check out Dr. Marnie Lavigne and everything she has to offer there with her team, the Entrepreneurs in Residence, EIRs, also the Eco Incubator program that's live and well, right? And anything else that you would like to add that they can tune into at launchny.org?
Yes, I would just, tell those thinking about getting engaged. There is a lot going on, so much that it's hard for any of us who live in this arena to keep track. So, just get the conversation going. I would encourage, as Mike just mentioned, we even have a specialized clean tech incubator that the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority supports, and has really been an amazing way to bring established industry players together with our most incredible innovators. But there's a lot of resources. We do have a resource directory on our website. You might be shocked to know there are over 200 different resource providers, whether it's from funding to incubator space to equipment access, facilities, and 2 other URLs I'll throw out to you. These are URLs really representing portals where you can, one is a digital entrepreneurship magazine, and that's called upstartny.org. The other one is a place where you can access capital and business support resources, any kind of entrepreneur, whether you're a Main Street business to high growth. And that one is capitalconnectny.org. I encourage you to check those out. They both have access to directories because, again, more and more there are diversity of resources available for you. So today's the day to get started. Check us out.
I love it. So I always like to do this. It kind of puts a bow on the episode. And thank you for so much wisdom today and insight. And I really feel this is almost like a playbook for someone who's already started to take it to the next level and gives them some actionable steps. If you could talk to someone who it's more of the ideas there and they just want to do it, but they're afraid and their influences are telling them, no, stay in, retail management or banking or insurance or whatever they're doing that may seem to be a great lifestyle, and it absolutely might be, but if they know, you get one shot. So if you can deliver a message, right, leaving our audience to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams, what would that be?
Good news. It's touching base on what I've said already. Get out there and just meet some entrepreneurs. Just attend an event. Most of these events are low or no cost, and see how you feel. Mm-hmm. Does it energize you? Does it scare the heck out of you? What kind of feelings does it elicit? But that is your first step, and it's very easy for you to do that. If you're watching this podcast and if you've reached all the way to the end, clearly you've got an interest. So get out there, meet some people. If you are interested in pursuing an idea and seeing how that works, there are some really neat programs like Startup Weekends that are open to the public. And even if you don't have a fully formed idea, you can actually join a team. So there are ways you can start to dive a little deeper than events and really get into, let me sit with you and actually talk about, my idea or help me with your idea. So again, today's the day. If you're listening, just go to launchny.org, look under our news section. You'll see our events. You'll see a bunch of partners and their sites. I would encourage you to take the trip if it means driving an hour to go to one of these events. You'll be able to meet others. You'll see a broader array. Mm-hmm. Now's the time, truly, to get started.
And that one meeting could be the game-changing event, life-changing event, meeting that one person, that one, you're not going there to try to find investors necessarily, but you're striking up great conversations with people doing it. And it's the infrastructure of support, right? Where if everybody's like-minded, that's what was great about, doing the event with Avanti. Everyone that was in the room that you were speaking to were like-minded entrepreneurs, and you could see their eyes were open when you were talking because they wanted to learn more and grow and support each other, right? That's really what those events are about, is supporting each other through their vision and then potentially working together, referring to other businesses or, connections, and that's it. So I love that advice. That's really, I'd say, guys, take that away and start there and then kind of work back on all the great points that Marnie made today. So thank you so much for your time. Hey, anytime you want to come back and do this, we'll have you.
Absolutely. We've introduced a lot of new products. We're supporting over 300 businesses at any given time. So would love another show where you can get to meet some of our entrepreneurs, and you can do that virtually even if you go to our website. So thanks so much, Mike. Thanks for the work you're doing for the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Hey guys, as always, a huge thank you for tuning in. Having the opportunity to continue to learn from Marnie and see how Launch New York is making a difference in Western New York has been a tremendous value to me. The 4 major takeaways from this episode that I'd like to highlight are: number 1, don't wait to reach out. Research Launch New York and their programs and see what fit is the right one for you. Number 2, find yourself a mentor. Get out there, no excuses. Go network. Go to the free events, even if it's a cost situation, the reason that you don't have a mentor. Some will do free mentorship in the beginning, at least lead you in the right direction. Many people that are successful are willing to answer questions, and they want to see you as well. They really like you and get to know you through networking. They're going to want to point you in the right direction. I've got some free mentorship that just happen to be people I've connected with, and a lot of them have been on the show, and some are going to be on the future episodes that I already have planned out. And it's conversational, right? And you ask them a question. It might be a specific business question. Don't be afraid to reach out and reach up and get into the network of people that you want around you, and then get mentorship from that group of people that are really doing well, and they're already wearing the hats, and they're in the position of where you're looking to go, right? So reach out to the group of people that are already where you're looking to go. Number 3, as Marnie mentioned, you got to be coachable. You can't be hard-headed and go in and then have someone deliver great information, $1 million idea, next thing you need to be doing, and then you just kind of, because you're hard-headed or stubborn or whatever the reason might be, the barrier, you're going to either miss it or miss that opportunity. So be coachable. Realize the greats in any industry, in any sport, it could be an Olympian athlete. They're looking to get better every single day, right? How does that change for you? I mean, what point do you get where you say, hey, I'm there, I've arrived, I'm at the top level? It doesn't work that way. So continue to learn, develop, and be coachable when you have that mentor or that opportunity. The 4th one's a little bit more tricky because it's a little bit of a push and pull, and kind of they contradict each other. It's mixing patience with persistency, right? And the best way I can explain that is being persistent and being patient while you're doing it. So it's not one or the other. I mean, you're persistent every day in your game plan. You know exactly what you need to do to be successful. And even if you don't know exactly what the roadmap looks like to success, you know that you need to be working hard at least at a minimum every day, plus be working smart and hard together. And while you're doing that, you need to be patient, because whatever you're looking to build, if it's significant, if it's a real true dream of yours, something that you're passionate about, you have to realize, if it is something that's really a big business idea, concept, vision, dream, whatever, fill in the blank, it's not going to happen overnight. So you do have to be patient while you're building it, right? And if you're confident that you're doing the right things, you're going to see those. Make sure you have some kind of milestone moments where you can look back and see some progress happening, so you realize it's not like you dig up every day. I saw a great example of this. Like, you don't plant a seed and then every 3 minutes dig it up to make sure it's still growing, right? You do have to be patient at some point where you trust in the process. We know all about that here in Buffalo. Hey guys, thank you so much for all that you do and for tuning in every single week. I'm grateful for every single listener right now, especially if you're listening all the way to the end. That means a lot to me. Shout out to everyone who's also been leaving me feedback. And hey, if you've been tuning in and you simply haven't, probably because you got 147 things going on right now, and I get that. But if you could take 15 seconds, hop on whatever app you're on, if it's Google, if it's Apple Podcasts, and you can even, it doesn't even take 15 seconds to give a 5-star review if you're really digging the show. But I appreciate all of those. And in addition to that, if you can write a line or two about something that personally clicked for you, I really appreciate those candid and personal messages that people are sending me. I love when you send them directly to me, but it's even cooler, obviously, when you leave it as a review, because then someone else can see it, and when someone's checking out a show, they're going to look at reviews and kind of see if the person, their voice is kind of similar to where you're at before you tune in. So I appreciate you doing that. This is a journey for me, and I appreciate you guys being here on it early on. We're 15 episodes in now, which I still consider very early on in this journey, and I appreciate you guys helping me spread the love. You could check out more show notes and information at mikeduppodcast.com. That's MIKED up podcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon, and you guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.